All right, in our last video, we gave you 5 tips as to how to make better coffee at home for all of us that are bunkering down for the next few months. So today I'd like to take a look at some of the particular devices you can be using at home and a few specific tips and tricks for those. So we'll look at first all the non-espresso methods, all the alternative brewing methods, and how some of those might be able to work for you. My number 1 tip for coffee at home is our old friend, the plunger. It's simple to use, it's cheap to buy, it's hard to stuff up. It's hard to make a bad plunger coffee. So if you're making coffee for the first time at home and you don't want to resort to instant because we aren't cave people anymore, then a plunger is going to be your best friend. All you need is a plunger. Grab your kitchen scales because that's going to help with our ratios of coffee, water and time, and a little timer so that you've got that. You can always use the one on your mobile phone if needs be. So what do? We get our plunger on there first up, and the first thing we do, and the first little tip, is heat up the glass. What we don't want to do is pour our beautiful warm water into a cold glass and lose a bit of temperature to that. So heat up the glass before you pop your coffee in. When you've got your plunger ready to go, zero out your scales, and the ratio I like to work with is about 20 grams of coffee, which is 3 heaped spoonfuls if you don't have your scales handy, 20 grams of coffee to 300 mils of water. That's the second tip for your plunger fan, is don't use boiling water. Boil your jug and let it sit for a minute or 2. Coffee likes to brew at around about 90, 92 degrees, so don't put boiling water in on top of your coffee grounds, otherwise you'll get that little burnt taint coming through. Then we'll start our timer as we pour our water in, and we're going to go for 300 mils of water, enough for kind of a couple of little cups for your authorised 2-person meeting. And then we're going to let that sit and brew for about 3.5 minutes. Okay, so we've got our timer going, we're ready to go. While that's brewing, let's take a look at some of the other methods. There's some really cool devices you can use at home, and most of them are pretty simple and pretty cheap to buy. One of my other favourites is a Chemex, which is simply a filter paper, which comes with your Chemex canister, and a flask. So that's as simple as putting your coffee in, getting your water again at about 92 degrees, pouring over there, and look, you can vary brew times, but anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 minutes seems to work quite well with that. Second is the old Italian stovetop. 80 million Italians can't be wrong. The Mr. Bialetti, a fabulous little device to pop on your stove. Simple device, water in the bottom, coffee in the filter, pop him on the stove, and a really quite nice espresso is the result. Then we've got more complicated things like the Hario siphon. Now it looks like a science experiment, it takes a university degree to operate. Unless you're really into your home coffee and have got plenty of time on your hands, I'd leave that one out of the mix. One of my other favourite devices is the Aeropress. This has got a huge fan base around the world. It's a very simple device, like a giant syringe, which sort of gives a bit of pressure as we push the coffee through the coffee bed. I only use the upside down method, which is you can brew it this way or brew it this way. I quite like the upside down method where you withdraw the plunger. We use a ratio of about 15 grams of coffee in this instance, so I'm going to get my plunger off my scales. So 15 grams in the bottom there. There we go, around about 15. And then I'm going to add in my water, and I'm going to go for a ratio with my water there around about 150. Again, you can experiment with your ratios of water to coffee. We pre-wet our filter, pop him on the top, and then upend him on the cup, like so. And then it's just a nice big squeeze. Now normally we want to take about 30 seconds to get to the bottom. So we've got our cup of coffee ready to go. And we're done. And there we go. A beautiful little coffee. Very simple, very cheap to do, and all yours at home. That's hot.